Welcome to the EA View. What a way to start the cycle of Aries through Pisces. Although we have had a few months here already, but we are starting with some fire today, and so excited to join together again with all of my colleagues and friends. We've got Deva Green and Sol Jonassen, Stacie, Pazura, and Rose Marcus from all over the world. We are joining you today, so I hope you felt the music and can feel the fire. There's so much fire in the sky right now. So welcome, and welcome to all of you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Here. We've put on our red for you today.
Well, we got Rose out of her seat, so I like that. Okay, the EA View, when we just initiated this wonderful talk show because we were fascinated with the fingerprint. We all have one. No two souls are alike. And I just remember back in the day that Jeffrey Wolf Green used to just marvel, and he was fascinated when he would observe people really following their fingerprint, no matter what it was. It could be large or small. And so we wanted to take a look at charts every month that reflect the archetype of the month and show how they are reflecting their fingerprint in the world, how they are truly honoring that. And there is one very specific energy that is required when we are following our fingerprint and not deviating from it at all. And that is courage. And that is a Mars word, an Aries word. So we are all experiencing and feeling a lot of Aries energy right now. And maybe you too are feeling the courage to go after something. Although, as we'll look at the transits coming up here shortly, there has been some dragging energy lately. So just a few more days of that, and hopefully we'll be off to the races. We're going to start today looking at Aries in space and what it looks like when we are experiencing it in the world or observing it in the world, and some current events connected to Aries themes as well. As always, we're going to look at the new moon in Aries. It's such a new beginning, fresh start, launch pad energy, and we all feel better typically around the new moon to start anew, to start over, to initiate something, and to clear that slate of old. Our fingerprint this month is Lady Gaga. Happy belated birthday, Lady Gaga. She was born the end of March. We'll take a look at the chart. And we, as always as well, we're going to teach a foundational principle of evolutionary astrology, Pluto conjunct the South Node. This is one of my favorites, actually, and we'll talk more about that in depth. Of course, we have the comedy with Sol. How could we go another month without that? It's our medicine for the month. And we will look at a very specific movie connected to Aries archetype with Deva Green. And this month is going to be wild with Drew. Who is that lead character? Reese Witherspoon. Thank you. And we will finish with an inspirational message to lead you into the next month. So here we go. I will start with the Aries in space because, you know, the other day, it was a couple weeks ago, actually, I was watching some air rescue on the television. I was blown away by these guys just flying out of a helicopter to save these sailors that were drowning in this boat. And these are a couple examples of what that looks like. But I literally, the first thing I thought of was, I wonder where Mars is in their chart. I wonder how much Aries this person has.
Right.
And, you know, just willing to die for your work, right? I mean, look at these guys, they're just going for it and not necessarily attached to anything, right? We've got skydivers. Looks like the guy on the right's got some kind of wire connecting him, but it just takes some cojones.
Oh, for sure.
Right, guys, come on now. Any one of you want to stand in line for this one? I don't know.
Well, this is a very North Sea thing, you know, like this is a very like a classic Norwegian thing, actually, because I live on the west coast of Norway. We have a lot of these oil workers here, and this is a very normal sight here. We live in the middle of oil industry. And my father, he's an Aries, and he used to work on one of these oil rigs, and he was a roughneck. And I thought that was a very Aries kind of profession, you know, and we actually talked about it yesterday, all these incredibly hard and very, very, you have to soldier your way through, and you are constantly in danger as well, being not like that, not like in the rescue thing, but they were also there. They always did all these security drills, and you know, you have to jump out of helicopters and float into the water in these suits, you know.
Yeah.
I was given elaborate training in that when I was a child, you know, like, and then we did this, and then we did that, and then we had to lie in the ocean for so long, and yeah, so that is definitely an Aries thing, you know, like having a little bit of adrenaline going, and also being able to respond very quickly to things, you know, not putting your, you know, not being afraid to die in the process.
Yeah, that flight or fight.
Right.
Mm.
Right.
Well, I mean, they're definitely not, a lot of souls with a lot of Aries do not want to be inside working, you know, they want to be out and about and risking everything on the edge. And I was also watching some Formula One thing recently, and one of the lead race car drivers' wife was saying, you know, my husband's just not happy unless he's totally living on the very edge. Like he doesn't know if this is the day he's going to die. And she's like, you know, I don't know if this is going to be the day I'm going to lose him. So obviously it depends on how it looks in different stages of evolution, but clearly these are risk takers. As we know with our fingerprint example today, Lady Gaga is a risk taker full on with fashion and everything else she's doing. She's not afraid to be who she is. She doesn't seem to be afraid to be judged or anything. So anyway, I just wanted to share that because, you know, when we're moving about in the world, and I don't know about you guys, but I feel like everything I look at, I think about astrology and how it's reflected. I feel like I'm always kind of working, and it doesn't feel like work, you know, whether you're observing something in the world or watching a movie or anything like that. So this is one way that it really helps you cultivate your understanding of the archetypes, to observe things, and what does it feel like to be that sign flying out of that helicopter. I think what it feels like is the way that we learn the best about these archetypes. So I thought it looked exciting, but I wasn't going to sign up for that one.
I mean, I can't really take adrenaline. I don't think it's fun. You know, like I read the other day that some people are just not capable of respond. They respond differently to adrenaline than most people. So they're like this percentage of people who are just like, oh, not so much influenced by it.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm like, I have to go to the toilet, you know, like I'm ready to not be, you know, I just want to get out of it very quickly, right? Most of the time, I don't think it's fun at all.
It's like, you know, it's action oriented. And I know I am an Aries, and I know those adrenaline rushes when I can't hold myself back, you know, whatever it is. Right. And I was going to share a story just here in my own neighborhood. Just quite recently, there was a stabbing. And stabbing using knives, you know, it's an Aries thing as well, too, which is just bizarre. We have this very quiet neighborhood. It's a lovely place to live. And this happened at the library of all things, middle of the afternoon, people with their kids and so on. And somebody went with a knife and got 7 people altogether, but one of the people who got stabbed was this high school teacher, and she was with her 10-year-old daughter, and she just completely lost consciousness. All she could think about was taking action. So there she was. She pushed her daughter out of the way, grabbed her umbrella, and started trying to stop the attacker. And she didn't have the tools to work with, but in the moment, she was really selfless. And, you know, all she could think about was that moment, and compelled to action. And I think that that's a lot of Aries too. You know, you just you disappear in that moment, and it's just the one thing. And you know, when it comes to something so critical like that, so you know, so fear, it's when courage rises, right? You know, and really there's no thought in the moment except to take action. And it was just such an incredible story. I mean, I could go on and on about what happened to the whole situation, but you know, that's Aries for you.
I wanted to share too, just briefly, like I have an Aries moon, so I'm well aware of what happens when when those energies get activated. And I was just going to share too that even in high school, I was getting death threats from somebody on a telephone. You know, we didn't have cell phones then, so it was like literally calling my house phone, and I had a bodyguard at high school. It was,
Wow.
you know, and I was just like one of these. I mean, I didn't steal anybody's boyfriend. I didn't, you know, it wasn't one. I just kind of,
Wow.
I didn't do anything to kind of provoke that kind of behavior. So it was probably just somebody messing with me, or just jealous of me. Who knows what it was at the time? But you know, the principal of the school was very concerned, and I was a cheerleader at the time. So of course, you know, at football games, I had bodyguards, and I mean, it was really getting intense. And one day I got followed home from high school in the day, and I was so tired of being afraid that I opened the front door and started chasing the car down. Literally, I was literally in the middle of the street. I have a vivid memory of it, just chasing the car. I didn't care anymore. And the calls stopped after that.
Oh my God.
That's very interesting that you say, because, you know, I have a Sun Mars square, and I've been, you know, like I was victim of blind violence, you know, like when people just suddenly attack you out of the blue, when I was in my 20s. And my Mars is in Taurus, coincidentally, so it kind of hurt my neck. You know, he went after my face, and I just, after, you know, I couldn't stop thinking, why was I projected? Why did the anger, you know, come my way? Why was I projected on? You know, because this person didn't know me. They had no personal relationship to me. I had never met that person before in my life. Why was it that I was the kind of like, oh, that person I would project my anger on? You know, like it's completely random, but that would be like somewhat of maybe it's like an internalized Aries energy that comes in with women, you know, in particular, because we've been taught not to show our aggressive, assertive sides more. You know, it's changing a little bit now. But I had to really look at my own internalized anger issues at that time after the attack, because I wanted to take some learning out of it. And I had to come to a realization that I could be pretty angry myself, but I just didn't show it. So it was kind of suppressed. It lay dormant within me, and I had some issues with expressing that particular part of me. And maybe that was something, you know, to learn from that story, because I always scratch my head and wonder, why me? You know, what did I do? I didn't do. I'm nice. I'm kind. You know. Well,
I mean, at the time, I didn't understand why, for sure. But I do now. Like there's a trail of things that occurred over time that with evolutionary astrology, we are able to connect the dots in the story, and we can get underneath these layers. Nothing happens for no reason. Nothing is random. And so part of why I think that happened was that it reminded me who I was. Like in that moment, I wasn't afraid of anything. And there's something that happens inside the soul when you get triggered. Any soul gets triggered. I mean, that they came to my house, you know, that was my family. Like then game over, you know what I mean? They can call me, but you come to my house, it's game over. And so that's the part of the Aries archetype, like that first one out of the tent when there's danger. Don't F with my family. Don't come near the place that I call sacred. And so that was it. And so I think it definitely unlocked something in me. It changed me for sure. It changed the way I lived. It changed everything. And it was amazing too that what I was able to realize at 18 years old was that 17 or 18 years old, was that the energy that we carry within us affects what we attract in our life. I mean, I wasn't a fearful person. I don't feel like that's why I was attracting that. But after the fact, like I said, the phone calls stopped, the threats stopped. So it told me that when I took charge of something, when you take charge of something with Aries, and you embody that courage, that will, that desire, then you're affecting your environment, and, you know, immediately. And so that was something I always pulled from moving forward, just to tap into that fire, that confidence, or that courage, or that intensity even that needed to happen at that time. So anyway,
and that's you know, that's the nature of the Aries archetype anyway. It's targeted, it's direct, it's specific. You know, And it's all about, again, the subjective emotional energy of that. And so it doesn't matter quite what the circumstances or situation, but what it provokes or what it triggers, and it shifts the effect, as you've just said, Kristin. So it's a whole, you choose a particular circumstance that's going to trigger all of that for soul. The Taurus end of that was reflective or responsive internally. When it's the Aries action oriented outward, it is a taking an action. That's exactly what it is. It's creating the moment so that all the rest of the puzzle pieces can fall into place.
So it was a fight or flight. Yeah.
Right. To connect with that, or to build off what you were saying, Rose, I remember seeing a story about a woman just going on a normal walk with one of her small dogs one day, local neighborhood where she'd gone a million times before. And a dog had gotten loose who would attack other dogs, a big dog. And he happened to stumble upon him, and he got the little dog by the throat, was shaking him around. And the woman knew just by instinct that if she didn't act, if she didn't find that space right then and there, if she couldn't activate that first responder energy, it was going to be all done. So she went and she grabbed the dog, allowed herself to be viciously attacked while holding the small dog up by one arm.
Wow. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
And it was that they ended up, her sister came running. Oh my God, what's happening? What's happening? Get the dog, get the dog. It was total Aries action moment. I'm seizing this moment and I'm going to, embody that warrior and that first responder energy. And as a result, her dog was able to live, and her sister took her to the vet, and the woman went to the hospital to attend to her wounds. And then she came out to pick up her dog, and the veterinarian asked her, he said, "Oh my gosh, look at your hands." Like, thinking about this, would you do that again? I mean, like, how are you feeling about what happened? And she said, "Oh, there's no question in my mind." And she was sharing that because of what it opened up for her in that space, that she actually felt a lot more brave and courageous and free in herself to take action when needed. And that it opened something up in her, maybe Mars and Cap. I can certainly relate to that. And that moment of having to just totally unblock it and say, hey, this is what needs to happen right now. And go for it. And it just changed her. It changed her so much fundamentally. And it's just a beautiful story of how I felt Aries is expressed or
I
can be.
remember this wonderful quote. It goes something like, "You don't know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you have."
Yeah.
And it's just so simple, but in these cases, this is what happened. The woman in your neighborhood, Rose, and Deva with the dog, etc. And even me at 17, like, this is going.
Yeah, I remember I had to run for my life. He was actually in my house, he just came into my house, and I had to run for my life, and he came running after me, and that was like the first instinct was just to run and hide. And he was screaming and yelling. He wanted to kill me, and I'm like, whoa, this one, you better run. So I'm very grateful. I've seen that instinct to just act really many times have been saving me from a lot of trouble, just because you have to react there and then.
I think this EA teaching is making new choices in the face of old dynamics, and so undoubtedly you went through that again in another lifetime, so you would have experienced.
Maybe, yeah, probably. And I'm thinking of the new moon, where it's landing in my chart and everything. It's a potent new moon, so I'm looking forward to hearing about that, Rose.
Yeah, absolutely. Do we have the chart there for the new moon? Oh, yeah. And we were just going to talk about this in terms of current events. Of course, we are doing this show on the 10th of April, and yesterday on the 9th of April, Prince Philip passed away. Yeah. And he was 99 years old. So he's been on the planet for a very long time. What's on the screen right at the moment is his natal chart on the inner wheel, and the transit for the for the death. And I have to say that, first of all, we don't know the exact time for Prince Philip. This is from Astro Data Bank, and it's a B in the lowest Rodden rating. So we're not quite sure of that. And I don't have an exact time for the time of death as well, too, but it was early in the morning. But notice what I wanted you to notice about this chart is that Pluto, sitting at 26 degrees Capricorn in the first house of the biwheel here, is in a square to his nodal axis, the North Node in Libra at 25 degrees in the 9th house, and the South Node at 25 degrees of Aries in the 3rd house. Got quite a lot of Aries energy there. And so this is, this is really an interesting thing, because he lived a life of duty, right? That was his main thing, the duty in relationship to that North Node in Libra, 9th house relevancy, duty to his wife, duty to the crown, and duty to his country as well, too. And so at this point, it is, any planet that's squaring the nodal axis here brings you to an apex point of the work that was set to be done. So this is really interesting that he goes out with this transit with Pluto squaring the nodal axis. And I think it's like that idea of having fulfilled the duty that he came here to perform. He performed in his lifetime 22,000 solo public engagements, and sponsored over 780 charities. So he was a very active individual. And it's interesting, this Aries Libra, because the roles were reversed. His wife was the queen, the feminine was the one in power, and he had to walk 2 steps behind her. And Prince Philip was really a man's man. He had a bit of a hard time, fitting himself into that role. I mean, he did it, but it's the role reversal on which one of them the partners are in charge, right? So there's a lot going on in this chart, but I just wanted to point out that Pluto squared the nodal axis. Natally, he has Mars and Pluto in the 6th house there in balsamic. So there's some completion that takes place here for him, and certainly lived a long life, didn't he? Anybody want to comment on this? I mean, there's a lot to talk about, but anybody have any additional comments?
The strong wife is the moon in Leo, so he certainly has the strong wife signature for a man.
You had mentioned Mars was squaring the nodes earlier, but it's actually a Mars return, and that Mars is trining the North Node. I think you were thinking of Pluto, right, Rose?
Oh, I said, yeah, if I said Mars, I meant Pluto. Yes, Pluto squaring the nodes. Yes, and Pluto.
And Pluto as well. Yeah, the second time you said the Pluto. That's huge. And I think you fulfilled that duty with the Mars return, right? Like you said, and trining that North Node.
Yeah. So very interesting too. And it's interesting as well too, just in kind of a sign of the times and leading into that new moon as well too. That idea of following the rules and so on. Right now, because of COVID, people aren't allowed to gather. And even the royal family right now is needing to adhere to the COVID rules, which is, kind of an interesting thing around the funeral and, all the things that would go along with royalty passing, so they're going to have a private observance and so forth. And that's really interesting. And just in terms of the Aries energy of it, they've asked people not to gather, because normally what you would see, and you're seeing it already, the flowers are laid out by the gate and people gather and they're telling everybody to stay home and telling everybody, not to put the flowers and, to do the observance, to watch the COVID thing. And people are still saying, but I just had to be here. I just had to do this. I just had to come. And I think that's that Aries kind of willful energy. I know what the rules are, but I'm not going to follow them. I'm going to be here anyway. I just have to be here. I don't know why I have to be here, but I have to be here. So it's interesting the way that Pluto's squaring the nodes, and especially with the Aries energy. And do we have the new moon chart up?
That's it right there.
Yeah, I can't quite see it on the screen well enough. Here, let me just see if I can move my chart so I can see it. Okay.
While you're finding this, Rose, I wanted to mention that he died on Prince Charles and Camilla's wedding anniversary.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
Wow.
So when you think of like the drama of the past of that family, and that Pluto squaring the nodes as well, feels real reflective of that.
Well, you know, there's a lot of conflict within the family as well too, with you know, Prince Harry and Meghan, and you know, all the things that have recently taken place. So it doesn't go out without you know, some difficulty, I would think. But moving to the new moon, we have the new moon at 22 degrees of Aries. And we have the accompaniment. I mean, look at how many Aries planets there are here. Mercury sitting at 14 degrees. That's Eris at 24, the goddess of discord. And we've got Venus at 26. The new moon at 22 degrees is squaring Pluto, which is at 26 degrees of Capricorn, right? You know, so this is a really punched up new moon. And a new moon in Aries, it's about new life, and it's about new vitality and new instincts, new beginnings, and starting all of that. And yet we've got a little bit of a holdup because we've got that Pluto in Capricorn. The sun and moon must surpass Capricorn before they're free. And I think that there's an obsessive quality to this full moon about getting over to the other side. I want to get past this. I want to move past the block. I want to move past the restriction. COVID, you know, here again, we have, especially where I am, you know, we've got a third wave and people are tired of the restrictions, and we've got more lockdowns instead of more freedom. You know, it's all of that. So there's still this new moon is building up a lot of energy, I think. You know, it is really, it's kind of stoking the fire there. Eris, that goddess of discord, you know, she's chomping at the bit to get her needs met. And we also have Ceres, which is 19 degrees as well too of Aries. So there's a lot of energy. I was thinking about a couple of things. You know, it's like for myself, I'm trying to move past a block, and I'm very frustrated because I'm trying to get past that block. I have another friend who's kind of looking ahead and being very fearful about what comes next because she's worried about the onslaught that she's going to get. And you know, it's about that looking ahead and wanting to get to that next place and not quite being there yet. And I think that whole thing about getting to the next place and having to have a little bit, well, you know, again, there's maybe some decisions that have to be made on you know, how you're going to put left foot in front of right foot. And I think the thing with the frustration is, you know, when we have some information, when you really know how you are going to be able to get that launched, get that started, you know, it relieves all of the pressure. It relieves all of the frustration of that. When you know that, okay, A and B is now here and I'm going to be able to do this and this, you know, and I think that that's all about that, not to get so frustrated in what you can't do right now, and to do the things that you can do and allow for that. It's all a matter of timing at the right time. And Capricorn's the archetype of time. And as we move forward in this coming week, those planets one by one are perfecting the square with Pluto and moving forward. So this whole week ahead, getting all the way to next Friday, when the Sun and Pluto will complete the square aspect. This is bit by bit by bit. Do what you can is my you know, kind of advice for everyone. Do what you can until there's something else to do, and then go do that, right? You know, so presence in the moment. Aries is all about the now, right? All about the here. So if you can, you know, take care of this moment and not worry so much about what's blocking you. For me, the block is the block itself. And if I stop looking at the block, maybe I'll be able to function. Maybe I'll be able to do whatever it is that I want to do, you know, looking ahead to the frustration and the pressure that's coming ahead when I get there. is not going to help me get there any faster, right? You know, so it is about kind of pulling back on, this is a break with the past. You know, again, we have to leave the past behind. To a certain extent, we can't change what is going on with COVID or the reality of the day, but we can do what is here and now for ourselves, right? You know, so this is about making new decisions, about seeing it in some kind of new way, and about taking some kind of new action that might mean leaving the past where it is for now while you move forward, right? Anybody else want to jump in here?
Well, I was thinking about that. The thing that, you know, like for an Aries energy like this, the stellium in Aries, it's not easy to be patient, you know, because the impulse is to act. You know, I have to do something. I can't just let this be like this. What is it that I'm supposed to do? And I, you know, for me, that Pluto in Capricorn, it's still that karmic energy that's lying there, and it's kind of digging into deep layers of ancestral healing, and, you know, ancestral, it's all the lineage coming up again, you know, with that Pluto in Capricorn. And I'm thinking sometimes we just have to almost wait out the karma. It is what it is until it's not there anymore. You know, we can't do, no matter how much willpower you use, you can't necessarily push it or move it in the wanted direction. You just have to be with it and sit with it. And I think it's a very good point, not focus on the actual block. I mean, I think it was, even though I'm not a big Osho fan, he said something really wise once. He said that don't solve your problems, let them dissolve themselves, you know, like through letting go in a way. So
yeah, that's good. And, you know, I am an Aries, and what I always say is the hardest thing I have ever had to do, or, you know, the thing that has been really difficult for me to learn is to count to 10. And I have learned over time that it's a really interesting thing. I go crazy. I go stir crazy because I need to act. I need to act. And I just keep holding back, holding back, holding back. And when I finally get to 10, and, you know, that'll be like the next day, or, you know, I'll sleep on it or whatever it is, I feel so relieved that I actually waited that period of time, because it did resolve itself, or something else dropped into place that was very useful, very helpful, or, you know, very strengthening, or, you know, something that added just the right element that made it all work out all right for me, you know. Yeah.
But it's very strange, because that depends so much on the individual chart. Let's say you have an overload of Pisces and Neptune in your chart. This Aries can really, you know, kickstart your energy and say, come on, it's time to move now. You better move now, because you've been delaying too long, or you've been postponing forever, or procrastinating. So you know, like for people, I'm also very impatient. I'm like, yesterday, please, you know, it was supposed to be yesterday. And acting too soon on things, you know, like it just normally gets me into trouble. So I think, you know, that's because I'm very Martian myself, you know.
And, you know, that's a good point, Soul. You know, for those who, you know, usually kind of, you know, the energy gets dissipated, or, you know, that Piscean energy or so on. Yes, this is a stoking the fire, but let's get a good fire going first. You know, it's like bit by bit by bit by bit. And that's what I see over the course of the next couple of weeks, is that, you know, like putting more coal into the fire, more logs on the fire, getting that nice and juiced up to the point of where, yeah, you know, it's a beautiful fire going, right?
I love fire. I can't wait for this one.
Looking at the Capricorn element with the Aries, as you were saying, both Rose and Soul, that there is an element of just by not focusing on the past or the block, or it's like freeing up emotional space to tune into what's the best action I can take in this moment, regardless of restriction or reality, or it's like taking charge of the moment. And in that way, it can help you tune more into your instinct and what feels right at any given moment in time. And there can be that release of pressure around, oh, you know, in the future, or even if it's only tomorrow, or I know on Monday I need to go do this, just being more in that space where there's that tuning into the nature of now, and how to best serve the nature of the moment, that can get that fire going, or that can create that best way to build up the energy, or to build that fire, as you were saying. Let's get some good embers going.
I
And
like
I
that.
think passion is way better than anxiety, don't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We
Well,
get
one thing that we
get to choose our one pick.
one thing we do on a new moon oftentimes too is oftentimes, I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of astrologers will say, it's a wish making day, and setting an intention for that month perhaps. And since it's Aries, it's a brand new energy and it feels very much new chapter-ish. But with Pluto square Venus, this is about asking yourself too, what do I need to remove or to eliminate to make room for what I want to do? Or, it could be a mindset, but it is the planet of elimination, Pluto. So eliminating things that don't serve you. If there are dynamics and relationships that aren't serving you, if you're in a relationship that is not serving you, this is a karmic turn for sure. And I've definitely heard from a lot of clients that are not getting their needs met in certain instances. And I'm okay, well, what are you going to do about that? Are you going to voice what it is that you need and what's not working and what's broken? Are you going to walk? What are you going to do? You got to do something about it and not let it perpetuate itself. So I think that the patience surrounding really in relationships where there's an imbalance, I think it's going to something will run its course, and somebody, you could very well reach the roof of that tolerance, and that will be a good thing if you can go about getting or experiencing more of what you feel is fair in your life. So that's another way to understand that. All right, and hopefully Aries will give you the courage to do that. Okay, following your fingerprint. Stacie, are you with us?
Yes, ma'am.
She's a little under the weather, but she's gonna.
I am under the weather. Thank you. I'm sorry I'm not on video today.
That's okay.
So yes, Lady Gaga. What a fantastic example that we have for Aries this month. Let's just start with her bio. She grew up in a Catholic family, a very conservative family. She went to, her parents were immigrants, but they weren't like already rich and established. They had to actually do their work. And so it really kind of established that kind of work ethic in herself as well. And she's always been attracted to the arts. She was accepted to Juilliard in, I think it was 1997. I had a notepad here of all kinds of references and I lost them, but it was something around 1997 that she was accepted to Juilliard, and that was declined. And she ended up going to like a very privileged Catholic school. She eventually was accepted into another program called the Tisch.
That's in NYU, I think.
Yes, it's a program through the NYU, but the Tisch Program of Arts or something. Mm-hmm. And there's only 20 people in the world who they would allow to have early admission to that. And she was one of them. And she went ahead and accepted that. But in the course of it, she kind of felt a little stifled and bored. And so she quit after about a year and decided to explore her own music. And, she was pretty young at the time. She actually started before this, but because she's been doing underground kind of New York City shows and burlesque and a lot of drag type things, and so she formulated a very strong bond with the gay community, and just really kind of found herself. And she eventually got signed to a contract through Def Jam. They dropped her like 3 months later. she ended up signing to another radio. Like, we could talk about her radio credentials forever. But basically somebody like finally like realized, wow, this woman has something special, and her music was finally offered to the public. And I think it was Love Game, which was no, Let's Dance is the first one that was offered, and then Poker Face. And people just thought, where is this woman coming from? She's coming out of nowhere. The truth is she didn't come out of nowhere, because she had all of this very disciplined experience behind her. But she just wasn't known because she was doing the underground stuff. And but when she was on the scene, everyone just took like notice of her, and she really made a mark. Talk about individuality, talk about someone who's willing to break paradigms, and to not just kind of rely on what's pretty. She was going for what would catch the most attention, and you can kind of see that in her chart. But anyhow, she's become this extremely accomplished musician. She's done collaborations with all kinds of famous people in the world. She's done philanthropy now. She is a excuse me, she is a definitely a figure in the LGBTQI community, as a show of force, someone who has been there to kind of shout that voice out and give people their strength. And so anyhow, yeah, let's so we're looking at the fingerprint, right? So this is someone who is really doing it right. This is who we like to concentrate on. And I just want to start with Deva, who's gonna kind of talk about Pluto and the ruler of the South Node in Scorpio, which is conjunct the South Node.
Yeah, whenever you see Pluto conjunct the South Node, it symbolizes that the soul is bringing forward core dynamics from its past, and that can take place in 3 different ways, or 3 different expressions. In the first case, there can be a total reliving or a total blockage relative to resistance to dealing with any of those issues brought forward from the past. So there's a complete relive. That's not common. The second expression can be a state of karmic fruition, where the soul has put forward such pure and sincere energy into resolving and to bringing these dynamics from the past to closure, to resolution, that a fruition is happening, that they're reaping what they sowed. And the third expression is a simultaneous experience of both fruition and reliving. Some dynamics of the past are being relived while others are being brought to fruition. That's by far the most common. And from my perspective, of course, everybody's free to jump in based on her following her fingerprint in the way that she is, and being in a very deep alignment with her natural nature in the ways that are expressed in her music, I would say, and how quickly everything happened. Stacie, you were saying, it didn't come out of nowhere. It was built up over time, but just revisiting or reclaiming herself and hitting it out of the park. So looking at this Pluto South Node, from my understanding, I would say it's in a state of karmic fruition. And relative to Pluto being in Scorpio in the South Node, which is the ruler of that Pluto, so everything's being intensified. And Scorpio in the 5th house, it relates to her creative purpose, how she's using her fame. That's what really sticks out to me, is that I love one of the titles of her album. It's called The Fame Monster. And she's talking very eloquently about, or very beautifully about, the pit that fame can bring, and how when you have the spotlight, what you can do with it, and really purging, or like coming back into alignment with her true creative capacities, her gifts that are jettisoned, or that are free from the influences of the past. Seeing that Scorpio in the fifth, it's like an absolute metamorphosis. And one of the beautiful quotes that I found by her that I feel really illustrates this Pluto South Node with its ruler conjunction, she says, "I am my own sanctuary, and I can be reborn as many times as I choose throughout my life." Pluto, Scorpio, fifth house, South
Perfect.
Node,
Right.
becoming into an absolute state of alignment with
Right.
her fingerprint, and unabashed, unashamed. I mean, she's got, not to sidetrack too much, Mars and Capricorn in the seventh house conjunct Neptune. You want to judge me? That's fine. I'm going to come right out, and I'm going to be myself. And to those expectations, I'm going to say, I've got Pluto and Scorpio in the fifth house. So I'm going to be myself, and that's that. In conjunct Neptune, another beautiful quote very quickly that I feel really encapsulates that symbol. Also, the Venus on the North Node, is that she says, "I work very hard, but when God opens the door for you, when life opens that door for you, I should say, I think it's important to be giving, to return the love back." And looking at that Pluto South Node in the fifth, she's one of those rare artists that really understands it's all about her fans. And that she structures everything to give as much as herself back to her fans as she can. I mean, what a Pluto South Node fifth house statement. Where her heart is in terms of giving everything she can to that. I really felt that in terms of the karmic fruition that is coming from those new choices, that she may have had situations where temptation or offered this, or, hey, you're given the spotlight, and you can do what you will with that. And her determination to make it about the authenticity of the music, her artistry, giving back to her fans. That's what she was going to do.
I have a question,
And
Deva. I had never even thought about this until this moment after all these years. This is welcome to EA. For that very special fruition example, the small percentage of the three choices there.
yeah,
Is it always well, I don't know. This is a new phase Pluto South Node conjunction because the South Node has just crossed over Pluto, right? So if it was, I'm just wondering if any of you guys know balsamic or new phase, can it be either when you're experiencing that fruition?
that is a good question. And from my understanding, that the best way you can determine that is really by asking questions, is observation correlation. Looking at one way to answer that in terms of the Pluto South Node is that she did have, well, and that's also Venus North Node, conflicts with relationships relative to her existing commitment to her work. And you can also see that as the Pluto South Node issue and the the heartache, or that beautiful song she wrote, "You're giving me a million reasons, and I'm looking for the one to stay."
Right.
But her underlying commitment to her work. So, right, exactly. It's from my understanding, it's I'm making that assessment based on her life and how well she was able to actualize her gifts. So observation correlation, but that is a great question.
I mean, I think when you look at her chart, there's a combination of a lot of balsamic planetary pairs and new phase, because obviously Pluto Moon is new, South Node Pluto's new, but you've got Neptune, Mars in a balsamic phase, Uranus and Saturn also in a balsamic phase as well. So anyway, it was just a question I came up with. I'm going to have to do some research on that.
Yeah.
I think that when you're talking about a balsamic and fruition, when it's a very tight conjunction, yes, fruition comes through there because, the balsamic cycle is about dissolving and letting go and surrendering and so on. But at the same time, it is also seeding for the future, right? So we have the intertwining of energies always, whatever we're doing. So yes, absolutely. I think it's got to do with fruition too.
Yeah, and she's born right after full moon as well. So, the moon and the sun are the right and the left foot of the persona. So you might see as well now she's reaping some of her, previous effort. Yeah. In terms of how she developed her personality, which is embodied by the sun and the moon in particular.
Yeah. And the balsamic cycle, is a cycle of the visionary, ahead of one's time, right? So it's got that flavor to it.
All right.
So this is you now, Soul. Let's
I saw that.
Okay.
And it's so funny because it's she recently had Pluto square that Venus, and what was it, this movie that came out? I'm not so much into pop culture, so I'm not very familiar with her work.
Star is Born.
A Star is Born, yeah. And there were these rumors about she being romantically involved with the leading, the other leading part. And then that was the beginning of her Pluto square Venus, and some issues came up in her then relationship with the man she was with, and he was getting a little possessive or jealous of her. And that's also reflecting back to those fifth house Pluto in Scorpio themes that you reflected upon, Deva. And I was thinking about this North Node, the ruler of the North Node is conjunct the North Node, although they are out of sign, it's a different kind of energy in these out of sign conjunctions. You have to think a little wider if you want to embrace the paradox of such a conjunction, because it's a yin and a yang sign, and Venus in particular is a yin oriented capacity with us humans. We connect through Venus, we receive through Venus. Venus is the receiving capacity to receive abundance. This is a very giving person. She's a very giver. She is a Aries woman on top of it. And she's her whole involvement with the gay community, and I saw a beautiful show she did with some drag queens, and I was just super inspired by that, because I've been into I've been watching a lot of drags lately. It's very fascinating, and it's very androgynous. There's like this it's and expressive and colorful and fiery. It's very fiery, the whole thing. Express yourself boldly, without shame, without excusing yourself, and that's very much a Venus in Aries and a fire thing in particular. And I'm such a big fan of fire. I love fire. It's my favorite thing on earth. I'm like, give me more fire, and I love fire people. They are so spontaneous and expressive and participate in the world through authenticity, which is her gift to the world. And that's why people love her. Somebody born with Venus on the North Node easily gain popularity. People just seem to, she embodies that Venus quality. And as mentioned as well, she really is there for her fans. But there's this very difficult yin-yang balance with that North Node as well that might cause havoc in her relationship in particular. This is where I see her greatest, grief or struggle in one way or another. Also that Mars-Neptune conjunction, boundaries and such, when she gets into her feminine and she wants to be on the receiving end, it might be difficult for her because she's a classic strong woman. Do you want to say that? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that the feminine is receptive. It's, like being in your feminine, you allow yourself to be held. You allow yourself to be led. You allow yourself to be dominated, actually, which is sometimes not very popular thing to talk about. But when it's healthy, the feminine surrenders to the healthy masculine. Now, of course, in these times, we embody both these qualities in ourselves, but our essence, our sexual essence, our identity, we find ourselves somewhere where we might identify more with, as a woman with, for instance, a feminine receptive kind of thing. It feels good to be there for somebody who's really polarized towards the feminine in their biological expression. They can be something else in their professional expression, of course, you know, very masculine oriented. But I think she is, you know, she's a heterosexual in her personal life, and that may cause some problems because she's already world famous and stuff like that. So I think, you know, she might feel that, you know, when you get somebody who's possessive and you have somebody wanting to control her, that's also a sign that the power balance between two individuals are a little bit off. And so I think, you know, she through her relationships, she's learning to let her guard down and learning to trust again, which reflects back to the South Node with Pluto there, learning to trust again so that she can create that one thing that the North Node in Taurus wants, stability. You know, she wants stability in her life on a certain level, not without, you know, being able to regenerate to a certain degree, but she you know, not these highs and downs and ups and downs, you know, that sometimes comes with the territory of Scorpio. So, and she's really embodying that, you know, she's learning to kind of fight for that. And she's been an advocate for many different causes, which is also a very Aries thing to do, you know, to be an activist. So I think, you know, through her work and through her life and through her relationships as well, and she had a few, and we will see a human being who's very authentic. She's bringing the authentic to you know, she's bringing something really raw and authentic. And she had a great development going on personally when Pluto was squaring her Venus with the making of that movie, and she got to be taken seriously, you know, like she was being embraced by a wider audience. People stopped criticizing her. She also got a lot of criticism, you know, and she's been projected upon. Mars, Neptune in the 7th house. I don't know if you got the latest one, but that's also the, you know, there's been this thing in the United States, the unmentionable thing that has caused the gap between this part and that part, and they've had some conspiracies actually aimed towards her, and it's been very strange, you know, like why, I mean, so there she is, you know, fighting for what's right, but she's also getting a little bit of, you know, resistance through it, but definitely showing us how vulnerable it can be to be a very strong and successful woman and not maybe getting that personal intimate life work for you as well. That's at least the thing that I got from her, you know, and I'm like, I've been sensitive to that particular issue in her life, you know, it caught my attention, and I'm not very, my eyes are not moving in her direction very much though, you know, so yeah.
Well, and the thing we have to remember is that, you know, she was born into a conservative household with immigrant parents who didn't have a lot for themselves. They had to work a lot of hours to, you know, really get their game up, and she learned that discipline through them. She's not a privileged per se person. She has had to really work for herself. And, you know, with this, you know, let's look at this Pluto with the moon. This is a new phase conjunction. And I mean, that's a very powerful symbol right there, because, you know, you have the unconscious desires of the soul, which are now operating in unison with, well, and since it's also in a stellium with the South Node, we're talking about, you know, past life experiences, current life or current soul desires, and then the current evolution of the self-image. And so what she has done in this life is she has explored so many things. And if you pay attention, she is going through those things so rapidly. You know, like you can just go through her albums and see an evolution just in every single album. Like now she's at Tony Bennett. You know, she started with Love Monster or Fame Monster, and now she's at Tony Bennett. And you know, she's just moving rapidly. And but here's the thing though, her main thing is that her main care in the world is that she wants to support people who feel different. She wants them to understand their individuality, right? This is Pluto, Moon, new phase. You know, this is a continuous state of discovery, right? You don't know what's coming ahead. You just find it when you find it. And she's like giving people, because this is one of the gifts of fifth house Pluto, is when you really integrate that lesson, you are able to motivate other people to find the motivation within themselves to take charge of their own lives. And I can't tell you how many people I've seen who have been so motivated just by her message. Like, you are special. It doesn't matter what you are, who you are, what you look like, how you act. You are unique. And people just really grabbed onto it. And I think that's really her legacy.
Definitely. I agree.
There's a beautiful quote, Stacie, that really speaks to what you're saying. And she says, "I'm confident in who I am. I've come to a place in my life where I've accepted the things that are me, as opposed to feeling pressure to explain myself to the people around me. That's just the way I've always tried to be. It didn't change when I became a star."
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That is so liberating. That's one of the things I adore with Aries, is that they are so authentic and they don't get into this pretentiousness. It's like this vanity thing. It's like, even though they get famous, they don't get like vain about it or arrogant about it or haughty about it. At least that's my experience, you know. And she's definitely there, you know. You gotta love them, you know. They are so honest and authentic with their expression.
That's definitely Aries. And what I think about that Mars in Capricorn in the 7th house, it's 0 degrees. And it's sitting right on the descendant there. And it is in trine to the North Node. The angle that Mars and the North Node are is a disseminating trine. And a disseminating is always about demonstrating, you know. And I really see in that Mars in Capricorn a signature of controlling the narrative. You know, the 7th house is how you are perceived, and it's all the realm of appearances and how you show up. And that Mars at 0 degrees Capricorn, it's a whole new start in terms of controlling that narrative. Capricorn brings us to the Saturn in Sagittarius retrograde in the 6th house. And, you know, I think in terms of that controlling the narrative, you know, of being kind of a spokesperson or a role model for the marginalized, and the marginalized being the, you know, the gay community and so on. I mean, where she found her first successes was in playing in clubs that were gay clubs and so on. And that's where she found her first tribe, really, you know, and so on. And I was thinking about this in, as she was, you know, going up there. I haven't heard this from her recently, but she always used to call her audience her little monsters. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And I think of that in terms of very endearing. And, you know, it reminds me of the 6th house is talking not only about, you know, hers, but, you know, about the collective, and it's the marginalized factions of society. And the way that she called them her little monsters was really a term of endearment. And it is like this Mars and Capricorn, own who you are, you know. And the Sagittarius piece of that Saturn, Uranus, and the Juno there in the 6th house, Sagittarius is an exaggeration archetype, you know, it's a bigger archetype. So don't make yourself small, make yourself bigger. You know, all of her costumes, everything is like showy, dynamic, you know, it's like this big, bold, you know, stuff. It's like, own it. You know, if you're going to be different, like just, you know, like, you know, splash yourself out there. That's all that demonstrating. It reminds me too, I have to say, I was a big fan of the Game of Thrones, right? You know, in the Game of Thrones, there was, Daenerys freed a little worm and his people and said, okay, now you can choose a new name. I don't know if you remember that, but he said, no, I wear this badge with honor. I want to continue to be called Little Worm because it led me to my destiny. You know, it's like loose thing. But I think of that as well, too. You know, it's like we're not monsters. We are, you know, people to celebrate who we are. And you know, and she put herself out there like, you know, pretty much naked, you know, in many of her videos as well, too, like just really demonstrating who she is. So I think that references that. And Sol, you made such an excellent point because her personal life relationships, you know, the seventh house, by the way, is the house of you know, meeting and greeting with social other. You know, a lot of times people look at the seventh house and, you know, just think about that in terms of partnership and, you know, the marriage angle of things. But, you know, this is where we, you know, where we go meet and greet, and it's all the diversity out there. You know, it's just, you know, it's the house of the public, really. But her personal and private life journey in terms of her relationships, it seems to me she's been through a few significant relationships that have ended, right? So I think that idea of being able to give up control and having and being able to, you know, be in a relationship and be, you know, not be the dominant, strong, you know, I mean, I have no idea, I haven't been there, but with her, you know, but I would think as an Aries Libra person myself, I know I have sometimes a hard time, you know, with the feminine side, and that tends to be rather difficult in relationship, right? You know, so I think she's at a new level here in terms of taking control of the narrative. That's what I think that represents for me in every way.
Well, and
oh yeah, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. So,
well, I just wanted to add a little thought to that feminine masculine balance, because you see a very powerful woman, you know, when she's expressing herself in the world. But if you look a little underneath in her chart, you can also see that she might have some issues communicating her needs when she's on the spot, you know, with that Mercury thing. You know, probably somebody's going to comment a little bit on that Mercury Gemini challenge that is in her chart with that Mercury retrograde. So we might be surprised that she might not even finish her sentences when it comes to private and intimate matters, and need to really, you know, step it up and maybe find courage there as well. You know, it's not a given that Aries are courageous everywhere. We all have our soft spots where we are feeling a little bit more vulnerable, and there's a huge vulnerability with that Pluto on the South Node. You know, like she's gone through rejection before. She feels it on her bones and in her body. It's a big, huge theme in her art as well, you know. So,
well, I think that's exactly why she's had to work very hard. I think she's got underlying insecurity, and so she has worked harder and pushed it harder, and right, you know, you can see that in her work. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I'm done.
well, Kristin, so what do you think about like Lilith? I mean, I see it's not on the chart like that we're looking at, but she's got Lilith in Aquarius.
She's there. It's up in the 9th house, 20 degrees. Right.
Oh, okay.
So as I've said in other shows, that we're always going to see repeating themes in a chart. Four of her planets are retrograde, which is already a Uranian phenomena. And in particular, Pluto, Uranus, and Saturn, which are the rulers for her root chakra. Those layers are all retrograde. So it's talk about being different, and breaking norms, waking up the world. Absolutely, she's going to be an advocate for anybody who feels different. Follow me, being different's cool. It's the only way to be. And so, of course, her original Lilith, her feminine fingerprints in Aquarius, of course it's in Aquarius. Where else could it possibly be? I mean, every time you see her, she's wearing something different, doing something different. And I have this memory of her I thought she was just phenomenal during the halftime show at one of the Super Bowls. I just was blown away. She's literally like, talk about raising the bar. She just blew the roof off of anything I've ever seen. She kind of flies in from outer space. That's how she enters the stadium. Like she's literally coming from the moon or something. It's so Aquarius. And one of my favorite things about, I just love that. If anyone hasn't seen it, you don't even have to like football. Just Google it on YouTube. The halftime show for Gaga is phenomenal.
I know.
All of her best stuff. Anyway, she at one point she's singing A Million Reasons toward the end, and her mom and dad are on the field, and right in the middle, or it might even be in between verses or before it starts, she says, "Hi, Dad." Hi, Mom and Dad, or hi, Dad. I can't remember what it was. It was so Pluto moon, just has this Cancerian quality about her. Her family is important to her, even though she had this really conservative and strict upbringing. There's still this little girl inside of her. But back to the original Lilith in Aquarius, it is in the 9th house, right? So she's all out there with it. She's so Sagittarian, so honest with who she is and unapologetic. And a quote that Deva lent me was, she says, "What's important is for us to decipher what is honest and what is dishonest and be accepting of those things and not operating from fear." So, it's important for her to not limit herself in any way, and yes, to be an honest expression of all that she not only thinks about, but dreams about or imagines within her. There's so much Pisces energy in this chart and balsamic energy. There's so much in that inner world of hers that needs to be expressed. And of course, you can see that with Jupiter and Mercury conjunct in Pisces, and that Mercury's retrograde as well. So, everything coming out of her mouth and everything that she does, she wants to do it with a twist. She wants to do it in a way that makes people pause or create shock value, frankly. But also just to completely remove the norms and to pave the way for anything's possible. And also, when you think of that Sagittarian 9th house placement with original Lilith, in addition to her Uranus and Saturn and Sag, the massive international fame, that came along with all of that. So one last thought was, we were talking about with the Pluto on the South Node and the moon there, and just where we started this whole show, of course, when you're going to put yourself in the limelight in any way, you're going to set yourself up for attack. And so I know that there was, for a while, maybe Stacie, more of this, some of the specifics, but she had to call off a bunch of concerts, I know, because of, she had her own people were threatening her and her fans in many ways, right? Wasn't that?
Oh, yeah. Well, and not only that, but because of hip injuries and, other issues. So yeah, she has had to do that.
But I think it's just, you put yourself out there in a way that it's so exposed, and obviously over time you're gonna see those transits come along.
Yeah, and I remember, I actually had it written down, and this is one of the notes that I lost, but she said something to the effect of, what was it? It was something to the effect of, this is what she said. She said, "I will be who I am until the nail is shut on the fucking coffin."
The final nail is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, she's not kidding. And so, like, she was, what she was pointing out is that she has really strived in her life to be who she is and to give other people the courage to be who they are. And she's not going to give up just because there is a monetary opportunity there. She's in it for the art. She's in it for the self-expression. She's in it for the, for herself, and she's true to it. And so, yeah.
She's an inspiration for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks to all of you. That was just as complete can be. I loved it. Soul. Make us laugh.
Am I ready? Yeah.
Oh my
Every
God.
time, yeah, this is like I've been thinking a lot about red flags lately. I don't know if it's personal, but yeah, I'm definitely getting better at seeing red flags. And that's one of the things that also was a little bit with actually Aries archetype, is that they hate abuse, anything that's abuse. That's why they often go, head on into activism. For instance, don't abuse the fish. We stop fishing, and veganism. And she had this meat dress once. Remember?
Right.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I think it was a PETA think or something. Like where she did some sort of activism for eating less
Well,
meat.
her whole thing was that with the meat dress, it was that she said, if you don't fight for your rights, then the
Yeah.
only rights that you will have are the meat on your bones.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and there are many ways you can interpret that one. I mean, it's pretty naked and raw, and that's Aries for you. They will tell it as it is, and they won't suffer abuse. The famous word for Aries is no. 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 So even though they often get in trouble with relationships because they're so instinctual and impulsive, it's like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. I guess not. They get out of it pretty quickly as well. So and I think like I've met a lot of mature Aries, and it's to my great surprise, they seem to be extremely cynical when it comes to relationship, because they just had enough. Like, it's just, no more bullshit. I can't. No, not happening.
Right.
So there's
Yeah.
like red flags everywhere. So this ideal and illusion that comes out of Pisces is just totally ending in the sign of Aries, the first sign of the zodiac. So that's when they start saying no.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. So when Aries finally had it with social games, pretentious people, stupid exes, and well, the world in general, and decides to go solo. Like, I've met so many hermits who are Aries, and you should think that they would love to gather around the bonfire and crack some jokes with some equally minded people. It's just that, there can be trouble with understanding the world and it's social constructs. So much of our social games, and like if they don't have nothing in Gemini in their chart, they might not get that, and they don't want to get it. It's like, nope. Honesty, that's the thing. Like, just what you see is what you get. That's Aries.
Yes, for sure.
And that's not the world. Sorry to say. All right, so an Aries inheriting a family farm, but needed to thoroughly sage the place to avoid repeating ancestral. Well, you do thoroughly, like, oops. So, this could easily also be Aries deciding to redo the entire house, but thought it was too much. It took too much time to take it down, so just burnt it down, impatience. But
oh my God.
I want to do that to my place, I swear.
And Aries finally had it with that one neighbor who kept taking his parking lot because
Oh man.
show him.
Speak louder than
right.
An Aries like action speaks louder than words. I'm not impressed with your words. Show me.
So this kind of, no, go ahead.
Aries kids wants to be Evel Knievel when he grows up, and he engages the whole neighborhood in getting there. So this is like,
that's awesome.
this is Aries kid in the street. It's like, been checking in on your kid lately? No, haven't been checking in on my kid lately. Well, you should.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, Aries hates to be bored. When work gets boring, and Mars in Aries thought lunching on the roof could kick up some adrenaline. That's not the thing I would do. But, that's definitely an Aries thing to do. So when playing chess becomes a matter of life and death and winning, there's we don't lose, we only win. Like the worst losers Yeah, you know, also probably the worst winners. You know, I grew up with 2 Aries parents and a Scorpio, and we used to play cards. And when my father won, he's like getting up and he's like slamming the cards in the table, like, yay, yay. Yeah.
Was he the Aries or the Scorpio?
Oh, the Aries. The Scorpio was equally, you know, it was fun though. You know, you grow up and you get familiarized with intensity. Yeah. So when your Mercury in Aries takes over and every little discussion is about being right and being a sucky winner on top of it, you know, and Aries is not the best listeners. That's you know, like I have Sun Mars square as well. I have to sometimes, you know, put willpower behind my capacity to actually listen and let people finish their sentences. You're not even hearing what I'm saying, man. You know, like, you know, sometimes you just have this feeling with people in a conversation that they're not listening to you. They're just waiting for you to finish so that they can get their point through. And that can sometimes be a little bit of like when you're engaged, because you know, like Aries is one of my favorite people on earth. I love their honesty and their no bullshit approach. Yeah, but it's enthusiastic. It's fire. You know, we have to be tolerant. We have to be have some empathy for it as well. Yeah, because it's not about being selfish or inconsiderate normally. It's just about being engaged and having a little bit of trouble regulating it. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah. So
when sometimes with all of my Libra concentration, I feel like I am having trouble regulating. So like I admire the Aries where they can just go for it.
Yeah. Well, you have a lot to learn from Aries with you.
Yeah.
Like a super thing going on in Libra. Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love the oppositions. They just keep teaching us, you know, our missing links. This is the beauty of EA in particular, because EA embodies this understanding of polarities. And this is the whole missing link in, you know, I did like that's so important when we think evolution, right? How do we get evolution?
Yeah.
So yeah, I wanted to find a face who would embody this. You're not getting a second chance.
Definitely not.
And then I thought of Katharine Hepburn and I thought she's got one of those looks. And I checked her chart and lo and behold, of course, she's a Venus in Aries.
Oh my goodness.
You know, like, and she's not Pisces, she's Taurus. And you can sort of like, she oozes that kind of, you're not getting a second chance. And it's over, you know, it's clean cuts and you never get to see that person again, ever. Oh yeah, sorry, I got that twice. You can just, oh yes, we are not sure what happened here, but we have to sure that Aries was involved. Yeah, I mean, they are famous for their fits, you know, like it's the head, you know, it's banging the head. My mother is an Aries, whatever, you know, when you're in a hurry, you bang your toe, your head, your finger, or something, you know. And that's when collisions happen.
Well, I just have to kind of share this. It's a kind of a funny story. My neighbor had a diesel come up and like pick up a car that wasn't working in his yard, but he did it at like 4 a.m. in the morning. And for some reason, I just got so ticked off because of the sound. And I just like went outside and I just stomped outside and I like put my fist on the hood and I was like, hey, shut this down. You know, it's at the middle of the night. And you know, I talked to the guy and he was like, well, you know, shit happens. And he told me his story and I was like, okay, yeah, you're right. And you know, we shook hands, but it's kind of funny that the story began with me just stomping out there, but you know, we ended up shaking hands. And
I totally agree with you. My father did that thing, you know, I'm feeling I'm outing him a little bit. I'm sure he will appreciate it. And,
yeah.
You know, like, and we used to live with, there was a building site next to it. They were building this big parking house, you know, this big, huge thing. And they kept pounding in these concrete, kind of like, I don't know what you call them in English, rods, huge ones, and all day long. And one day, you know, my father went out for drinks with some buddies and they came out late, and he probably woke up with a pounding headache or something. And, you know, in his undies, he just had it. He just completely lost it. He went out to the building site in his undies and like, I'm going to kill you, you know. Stop this thing. You know, like,
Yeah.
and then they got so scared. My father is a huge guy, you know, like he's very frightening when he gets angry. There's a lot of temperament.
Right.
It comes to the boil. It's really like, okay, everybody just, you know. So, you know, later that day, the police came over and they're like, excuse me, sir, I hear we had some death threats. You know, like they, and my father was like, listen, sir. And he told them the story and they're like, oh, yeah, we totally get that one. You know, like they totally got it because they could also hear it was torture to live next to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's like, there's a boundary somewhere and we have to remember Aries are boundaries.
Yeah.
It's all about boundaries.
All right. Thank you so much, Soul. That was joyful. It just takes years off my life.
I know.
I mean, it actually adds years to my life. What am I saying? I reversed that. It gives me more time.
I didn't hear that. I heard what you meant.
You know what I mean.
Yeah, I heard what you meant.
Thank you. Deva, the movie today is Wild, Aries.
Yeah, I felt that the movie Wild with Reese Witherspoon would be a great pick for Aries because from my point of view, it really illustrates the moving forward from the past in a way where you're not just moving away from something. You're not just, oh, I'm just going to let this go. It's that you're also in the process of rediscovering or reclaiming a part of yourself that is coming through a new cycle, a new experience through the new, or through being able to have the freedom to explore and pursue what you will. Aries will give itself the right to do that, which is much needed in order to reclaim that part of yourself coming from Pisces. And in the movie, it symbolized the breaking from the past, and the rediscovery is symbolized by hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. And it comes very spontaneously. It's after she decides to leave a very abusive relationship that she realizes this old cycle's done. And so what do I do now? And just out of instinct, I've got it. I'm going to hike the entire Pacific Crest Trail. That's going to be how I do this. And with each day and with each step, she's letting go of a memory of her past, of who she had been. And she's rediscovering a part of herself that she had lost, but had always been there. And for me, that's a very Pisces Aries. And a beautiful quote that I felt illustrated this is, uncertain as I was to push forward, I felt right in my pushing, as if in the effort itself meant something, that perhaps being amidst the unsecrated beauty of the wilderness meant that I too could be unconsecrated, regardless of the regrettable things I'd done to others or to myself, or the regrettable things that had been done to me. Of course, all of the things I'd been skeptical about, I didn't feel skeptical about this. The wilderness had a clarity that included me.
Yay. Wow. Goosebumps.
Yeah.
And she, with the movie, in my view, is beautifully done because with each step she takes, it's like a releasing of the past cycle and then a remembering of what's ahead, or a recovery of what's been underneath there, and the rediscovery of her essence and the connection to nature, rediscovering her beauty through that and her freedom and her voice, and it really being guided. There's no structure. The square to Capricorn, you wake up every day and you just go with your instinct about what feels right. Take this step, take that step. There's no there's no specific schedule or how to do it, or do it
Right.
this way or do it that way. Really tuning into that that warrior energy of Aries and following what feels right, literally with every step. So for me, it was a very beautiful movie in terms of the courage to move forward and to rediscover or to reclaim parts of yourself that have been lost.
Mhm.
I think Reese is also, Reese Witherspoon is an Aries. I think.
Yes,
And
she
look at,
is.
it's such a like, I mean, if you look at this, they have this kind of like a little bit of pointy chin very often, the Aries ladies.
Hmm.
You know, also the leading star of Sex and the City, she's Aries. I don't know her name.
Oh.
Sarah Jessica Parker.
Yes. Thank you. So she's also this like this little pointy, you know, Celine Dion. You know, like she kept
Rose
this.
Marcus.
But I've often seen this wilderness, the wild thing with Aries that occasionally I remember having when a client who had a south node thing going on with the moon there, and she had some pretty traumatizing experiences in her life where she started to kind of like say no to the wild side of herself because the expression was too much for her, you know, like it went in, like she couldn't contain it, like it needs to be contained in one way or another. So like I think we can fear our own wild and spontaneous because it's impulsive, it's there in the moment. You really don't get to stop it, you know, like I'm going to see this movie, that's for sure.
Yeah. Good.
Mhm. It's a good movie. It's been a while since I've seen it. I remember it's pretty intense. I mean, she goes through some pretty incredible stuff in that movie.
Yeah.
And it definitely takes that
Right.
Aries energy where it's just like, I've got to do it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Right. And everybody from her past, she just, you know, makes a decision to do it. She makes the phone call. She says, hey, this is what's going to happen. And I'm sorry. That's
Yeah.
my direction now. And, you know, we'll write letters, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this path, and just trusting that her instinct that was going to be the way for her, to do that. And every day she writes in journals, and she writes these little inspirational messages in these posts that they have along the Pacific Crest Trail. And almost everyone she meets, right, they either need to turn around or they need to stop or they can't make it. And here comes Cheryl. She just keeps one way or another, makes it to the next post and the next one and the next one and the one after. And with each message each time about how to keep going forward. And
Right.
just that feat in and of itself. Somehow I made it to the next station. I don't know how, but here I am, very Aries style.
Right.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Oh, thank you, Deva. It's a wonderful way of recalling things in movies. It just blows me away.
I know.
She's seeing it over again.
Yeah, I'm a fiend. I am a movie fiend.
Like, oh, it's so funny that scene.
All right. Well, this has been an incredible time. Again, once again, I love just joining with all you gals and everybody else listening. We can feel you. We can feel you here. But to close today, I'd like everybody to close their eyes. And if you're driving, of course, please don't, and you're listening. Just everybody close your eyes. We've just been on fire with Aries, but I just want you to really just downshift for a minute. Aries is right next to Pisces, and it's just 1 foot away. You can reach back into your dreams. I'm just going to ask you one question that Aries likes to ask. What do you want? When I ask that question, your instinct is going to tell you something. Your body's going to tell you something. Your heart is going to tell you something. When I ask you what you want and the instinct responds, the mind doesn't have time to even grab a hold of anything. So that pure, unbridled instinct, that's Aries, it's Mars. There's a reason that it is paired up with Pluto at the navel chakra. They're brothers in astrology. And Mars will take what is unconscious inside the soul and say, hey, soul, what do you want? And so the way that we determine what our soul wants is through our instinct. And when I asked you that question, something surfaced, there was one thing ahead of everything else that surfaced. Maybe if you're not feeling well, you just want to feel better, like in the movie Wild, she just wanted to make it to the next station. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be this enormous thing that you want in that moment. Maybe you want the sun to come out so you can put your face in it. But right now we've got a lot of fire happening, and this fire is telling your soul what you want. Mars is in Gemini, so maybe you want more than one thing. And since it's been squaring Neptune, you're not sure which direction to go or what to grab a hold of or what's best for your journey. Which one of these desires that I have is going to add on to my soul in some way and contribute to my evolution? And you're not going to really know during a Mars-Neptune square, but you will know come Monday. You will know on the other side of this new moon what is best for your soul. And maybe something you have to say no to so you can say yes to something else. And so that's what I want to invite you to do now as we move into this. We'll finish out this weekend and we'll move into a new week and embrace this Aries energy. So thank you all for joining us today. And we have a new book out. And speaking of new, before we get there, Taurus next month, May 1st, Saturday, we'll be together again, looking at the Taurus archetype. And here's our new book, very Aries image, I will say. Natural astrology.
Yeah, but EA is a very Aries thing, they're bringing in some new concept into the world of astrology as well,
Oh yeah.
So it is a pioneering consciousness in the world of astrology.
Absolutely.
So, good image.
It's ancient, but it's new. Right?
Yeah.
It's not traditional, but it's ancient in its origins, but it's new in terms of bringing the planet forward. And here is our beautiful, wonderful list of contributors to this book. So if you haven't checked it out, you can get it on Amazon. And of course, all of us here today, we're a part of that wonderful project. And if you're a new listener and you want to learn more about evolutionary astrology, check out the website. You can also access the original teachings by the founder of EA, Jeffrey Wolf Green, and get a hold of those original DVDs. So we'll be back May 1st to talk about Taurus. Happy new moon in Aries, and I wish you well moving forward into the spring. Namaste.
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 Yeah. Waited for that one.
I forgot it's winter in Australia, but
It is kind of very nice after all.